Hello everyone, and welcome to week 12 of English 120. For this week's schedule, I'd like you to start off by doing your research assignment in your comp class. Our assignment for this week is comprehending and assessing the appropriateness of resources. For your readings, there's a slight change in what was posted in the assignments last week and what was posted on the syllabus because I needed to find something that was better suited for the lesson we were going to be learning this week. I'd like you to read Generation Debt and Selling in Minnesota. These are both in the Conscious Reader, and we'll be working with these texts in our discussion forum. Finally, your assignments this week, I'd like you to draft a position statement assignment. I'd like you to participate in the discussion forum. We're going to be discussing whether or not your readings from this week in the Conscious Reader show any sort of bias, and how, if there is bias, how that affects them as relevant sources. And then you are required to check in with me this week, unless you've already done so, about your research project. I'm going to be providing a lot of input on where you're at and helping you move forward in your research projects. So just to review, the research project deadlines are as follows. You're to have already turned in your research topic and tentative position, and that needs to be approved by me. In week 8, you were to turn in your research prospectus, and that was turned in week 8. In week 10, you completed your topic history and annotated bibliography and outline. And anyone who's turned in any of these documents above have gotten my feedback. Please revise the documents if you receive comments to get them to the best possible shape that you can get them. I will regrade them based on how well you take in the feedback. And as always, if you have any questions, please email me. In week 13, which is next week, you're going to be turning in draft 1 of your research paper. This is a 6 to 8 page paper, and I want to make sure by the end of this week, everyone in this class is ready to write that paper. In week 14, you'll be doing peer reviews. That means each of you will be paired up with someone else from this class, and using a template, you'll be doing a peer review of their paper. In week 15, you'll be doing a self-review of your own paper based on a template that I'll be handing out to you. And in week 16, you'll be turning in a final draft of your research paper. So let's talk a little bit about comprehending and assessing the appropriateness of your resources, which is your unit in your comp class this week. The unit starts off by talking about what an appropriate source is. It's one that is used ethically, accurately, and wisely in your research project. Anytime you use a source, you don't want to use it out of context, so you can't take a quotation and change around its actual meaning in order to support what you're saying in your paper. And you also need to be aware that all sources have some sort of an agenda. Everything you read, whether it be a newspaper, whether it be a poll, whether it be a research article from a scholarly database, it's going to have an agenda, and you need to understand that as you're reading it and trying to get information for your research project. Based on this idea, I'd like you to review tutorial 3 called Sources Have an Agenda on your comp class. Then watch the video, Research Writing, Fact versus Opinion. Finally, be sure to do the reading in the Bedford Researcher, that's your ebook in your comp class. You're going to be reading the chapter introduction for chapter 4, sections 4A and section 4B. In the Conscious Reader this week, you're going to be reading Generation Debt, found on pages 560 to page 568, and Selling in Minnesota, found on pages 568 to 572. In the discussion forum, you're going to want to discuss whether or not your readings show bias and discuss how that affects them as being relevant. Finally, you're going to be turning in a position statement. You're going to draft a position statement in order to better prepare yourself for developing your thesis statement. Your thesis statement is the heart of your research paper. It's where you talk about not only the topic that you're talking about, the main issue you're discussing, but also the why, your slant on that, why you're actually writing this paper. And by actually creating a position statement, you'll better prepare yourself as you do your research. You'll know which research to quote from in order to make your points. You'll know which research to pay attention to in order to gain facts and information to support what you're doing in your paper. So, in order to do this, you'll need to complete the following steps. I want you to write your current research question. These are the questions that you put together as part of your research prospectus. Then I want you to brainstorm or free write in response to your research question. Then select the response that best reflects your current understanding of the conversation you've decided to join. That means the people who are talking about your issue, what are they saying and what are you listening to and what conversation about it are you trying to join? If appropriate, combine responses into one position statement. And then I'd like you to write your position statement. There are examples of position statements found in the Bedford Researcher, Chapter 4. Please use those as your guide as you complete this assignment. Finally, next week, as I said, you will be turning in the first draft of your research paper. Don't worry, we will be doing several drafts, but you need to do the best that you can on this draft. So the more work you do this week in order to prepare yourself, whether that be meeting with me to get yourself on track in your research project, whether it be drafting an amazing position statement, or really paying attention when you do your comp class or you work on your discussion forum and understanding the readings, you'll really be prepared for next week when you write your essay. So, as always, please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I look forward to seeing you guys online.